Hello. My late grandmother had a poem on the wall, all about rebelling in old age. She didn't rebel herself, so maybe it was a bit aspirational, something she would like to have done had she had the confidence to do it. It's a fun poem. I'm going to read it now. When I'm an old woman, I shall wear purple, with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me. And I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals and say we have no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only eat bread and pickle for a week, and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay our rent and not swear in the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I am old and start to wear purple. I love the colour purple. Before I was ordained, it was one of the colours I wore most. But unfortunately, in clergy circles, only bishops are supposed to wear purple tops. Maybe I should start a campaign for bishops to wear brown, as I don't wear that colour at all. Our reading today from the book of Acts is about Paul and his team meeting a woman called Lydia, who we're told was a dealer in purple cloth. She really should be the patron saint of bishops' clothing. 2,000 years ago, purple cloth was a real luxury. It was something that only the richest and most important people would have had. This was in large part because of how the dye was made. There weren't any packs of Dylon to put in the washing machine back then. Purple dye was made from the crushed shells of the Murex sea snail. Apparently, it takes 54 kilograms or 119 pounds of snail shells to make just 1 gram of the dye. That's why it's so expensive. It took a lot of work to produce the dye and then the purple cloth. Lydia's story is part of our story as well. She is the first recorded example of somebody being baptised in Europe. Paul and some of the members of the early church were telling people about Jesus in the area that is now known as Turkey. But it wasn't really going to plan. And then one night, while they were staying in Troas, Paul had a dream, a vision, in which a man in Macedonia, which is now part of Greece, asked Paul to go there to help tell people in Macedonia about Jesus. And that's what they did. They travelled across the sea and then headed for the city of Philippi, the biggest city in that region. After several days on the Sabbath, they went down to the place of prayer down by the river and found Lydia and some other women. The fact that Paul and the others went to the river suggests that there wasn't a local synagogue for them to attend, which means that there would have been fewer than 10 Jewish men locally, because you had to have 10 Jewish men to form a synagogue. Instead, without anywhere else to worship that day, they end up with a group of women who are praying by the river. Knowing that God had sent them to Macedonia to talk to people about Jesus, that's exactly what they did. They told Lydia and the other women about Jesus' ministry and his death and resurrection. The women who were there were most likely to have been Gentiles who believed in the Jewish God. But now they learn about Jesus as well. And Lydia believes what Paul tells her. She and her whole household get baptised in the river that they'd been praying next to. And she then offers hospitality to Paul and the others, inviting them to go and stay with her. Later, in the same chapter in Acts, we learn that Paul and one of the other men, Silas, end up in prison. They're wrongly imprisoned, and eventually, once they're freed, they return to Lydia's house, where we learn that they encouraged the brothers and sisters there. Basically, Lydia's home became the venue of the church in Philippi. Having started following Jesus, she offered her home and her hospitality and shared with others the good news that she had heard about Jesus herself. So it's a nice story, but how is Lydia's story relevant to us today? Well, what we see is the good news about Jesus being passed from one person to the next. Paul, when he was known as Saul, originally persecuted Christians rather than following Jesus himself. But after his conversion on the road to Damascus, he realised that if Jesus was good news to him, then it was good news for others. So he started telling others. And one of those he told was Lydia. And she, in turn, then told those around her so that they knew about Jesus too. Paul spread the good news by moving around, including taking the gospel to Europe for the first time. Lydia stayed local and told those around her, her household, her neighbours, maybe those she did business with. And the church grew as more people realised who Jesus was and that they were deeply loved by God. They wanted to meet with other Christians, to worship together, to learn more about Jesus, and to help others know that they were loved by God too. Both Paul and Lydia make their faith a priority in their lives. It doesn't appear to stop Lydia running her business. She carries on being a dealer of purple cloth. But she did that alongside the hospitality she offered to the church and the work she did to share the good news of Jesus. Lydia realised that for the church to flourish, everyone needed to play their part and that she could make a difference. She used the resources, skills and passions that she had to help spread the good news about Jesus. Lydia, the dealer in purple cloth, well connected, influential, rich enough to own her own home. She used who she was, she used her situation to help others meet Jesus. And it's the same for us today. Like Lydia, someone told us about Jesus for the first time. And like Lydia, we have that opportunity to share that good news with others. We have that opportunity to help the church flourish today. And for the church to flourish, all of us need to play our part, using our resources, skills and passions, telling others about the hope that we have found in Jesus, helping others find their value and worth as dearly loved children of God. When you think about your own life, your own community, your church, what opportunities are there for you to use your resources, skills and passions to help spread the good news of Jesus? Who first told you about Jesus? Who helped you realise that God loves you? Who do you know who could do with reminding that they are loved by God? Where can you be a Lydia this week?